here in the Zoom call. It is here because the Zoom call allows you to ask questions. And now I think we should also be live on YouTube. So once again, welcome to our first English web seminar on getting started with Semanux Access. To the people in the Zoom call, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. 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 Start over. So to the people at the Semanux in the Zoom call, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. But of course, you're here to ask questions. So feel free, if you have any questions, to interrupt me at any point in time. Unmute your microphone and ask whatever you want to say. Be aware though that what you're saying will be in the recording, in the live stream. So only talk when you want to talk. Your webcam feed is not shared with YouTube, so only the other participants in the Zoom call see that. So only if you elect to talk, we will hear you in the recording. Okay, and before we start, any questions from you guys, or should I go straight into it? Okay, so the idea is this is the getting started on how to use Semanux Access. So this is intended to be a seminar which really teaches you what are the first steps to get Semanux installed and running. And I also try to do this at a pace where you can do it at your own pace together with me on your computer. So if I'm going too fast, feel free to tell me to slow down. I know we have a couple of people in here who used Semanux Access before, so it might be a bit of repetition for you guys, but also this is once again shared for other people. But if you have any more in-depth questions, feel free to ask them. Whatever comes up in your mind, just ask me. Okay, so first off, if we want to start using Semanux, we go to our website, semanux.com. And then here we see Semanux Access. This is what our seminar is about, and like you probably know, this is to be able to use your computer without mouse and keyboard. And now we want to use it, so we click on the Try Now for Free button, and you will see our different offerings. And this might be the first question you have, because actually Semanux Access is available in 3 different editions. The first one, which not everybody might have heard now because it's fairly recent, is that we have Semanux Access Free. So this version of Semanux Access is completely free. You do not need to sign up. You can just use it however long you would like to. But the problem, or the thing is, this is intended for you to try out if Semanux is right for you. So you can only use it with our inbuilt tutorial game to try everything out if it works for you. But in order to actually use it to control your desktop, you would have to go for either Semanux Access Flex or Semanux Access Pro. And the idea of Flex is you pay a monthly subscription, and then you can use it for however long you want to, and you can also cancel anytime. But in order that you're sure that you actually want this, you can try it out for 14 days free of charge. And then the Semanux Access Pro version is the one we distribute through our partner network in multiple different countries. And actually a few of the partners here are in this Zoom call. So I guess this web seminar will be focused mostly about this Pro version. Still, how would the Flex version work? So you'd say, okay, hey, I want to try it not for free. And either if you want to subscribe or if you just want to try it out for 14 days for free, you would sign up with an account here. You would create an account. I already have an account, so I'm not going to do this right now. But this would give you access to the free trial of Semanux Access Flex. Okay, and if you actually have the Pro version, you would have an activation code, but I'll show you how to do that in a minute. All right, now that is done, we now want to download Semanux Access. Actually, this is possible either if you sign up by the email you get, or you can just click the download button over here. And then Semanux Access is available for Windows and Mac, so you can choose what operating system you're using. And under Windows, we actually have these 2 different things here, and we also get questions around this often. So this is either if you are an administrator on your computer or if somebody else is your administrator. So we could recommend that if you are your own admin, you can just download the Semanux Access with admin rights version. So this gives you a bit better experience, and for example, allows you to have Semanux on top of all other apps. This one is the option if you cannot talk to your administrator that you can still install it. So we would choose this option, but I already have downloaded the installer. So this is what you would download then, and you just double click to start the installation process, and everything from there works by itself. But we will just do that together. If you, of course, would like to try this out on your own computer, now would be a good time to also do this so that we can all do it together. Okay, and Semanux actually has installed itself now, and it's starting now. And we can see, yes, it actually started. So this is what you will see when you install Semanux for the first time. You can select your language. We will choose English for this seminar. You click next, and actually then you can shown a YouTube video that really walks you through all of the different installation steps. For now, we only have a German YouTube video, but if you would start it, we have English subtitles available, or even subtitles in other languages. So we hopefully this also works for non-German speakers for now, but we will add more videos and also English ones in the future. Then we click next. We are able to select some colors, but we are fine with this for now. We have to select the country from which we are using Semanux for the correct legal documents. We see the privacy policy. Actually, I don't want to read all of this together with you now, but I know what's in there because I've written it. So we click on next, and now we see this screen. And this is basically the screen that tells us what edition of Semanux Access we want to use. Like I said before, we have the free, the Flex, and the Pro version. And if you just want to use the free version, we do not enter a subscription code or activation code, but we would directly go to skip over here. So you click skip, we don't have to enter anything, and we see, hey, okay, we have now the free version of Semanux. In case you want to use the Pro version, you would use an activation code. So you don't also, for that, you wouldn't need an account, but rather you click on activation code here, and then you can enter whatever code you have, and then it tells you, hey, okay, you have Semanux Access Pro. And otherwise, you would use an account with an email and a password. In my case, I just need to look these things up. So my account is lucas@semanux.com, and this is my password. So now I can click login. Everything worked, and it now tells me, okay, Semanux Access. Actually, my account also has the Pro version, but we are able to use this now. So we click next. We see the end user license agreement. Also, please read this one and tell us that you accept it. We click on next, and now we actually have to select the display that Semanux Access should run on. In our case, or my case, this would be the first display, and the display size of my screen is 32 inches. So I can just enter this here. We go next, and now we see perhaps the most important screen of Semanux Access, namely the different presets that are available on our app. And most of this web seminar will be around these different presets, how they differentiate between each other. But for now, and for most people that you want to use Semanux Access with, I would recommend that you start with the head movement plus facial expressions preset. So this is that you move your head and that you do facial expressions like opening your mouth to actually operate your computer. But we will see all of this in more detail later. So we go next, and now there's another YouTube tutorial that shows us really what this preset is about and how to use it. But you have me, so you don't need it. And now we have to select the camera that we actually want to use to recognize our head movements. In my case, I have actually multiple webcams connected to my PC. I'm using this webcam for now for streaming to YouTube, so I have to use a different one. So let's choose this one. And actually it tells me that it's in use by another program, but this should not be the case. This is a limitation of Windows that one webcam can only ever be used in one program. But I tried this before. Yes, there you see my webcam. Okay, so you actually see I see myself now on this webcam that's recognized by Semanux Access, and we can continue. And here this is just the screen for our facial expressions. By default, we use only the mouse open expression, so we can test that if I open my mouse. It's actually working, so all is fine. I can go next again, and we are done with the setup. Everything clear so far. So once again, how does installing work? You go to semanux.com, and actually there are multiple download buttons. The quickest download button would be you go to My Semanux, and then you go here, download Semanux Access. You have to choose the right version for your computer. You get the installer, and then you just click next to the setup and do what you're basically being told. And at the end, you should see this setup complete screen. Any questions so far? Okay, looking good. Then let's move on. We click finish here, and by default, this will start our tutorial game. This is quite a simple game. It's not complicated or anything, but we find this is a good opportunity to try out the basic operations with Semanux Access, and it's also usually a good idea if you want to show Semanux Access to somebody else to start with this tutorial game, because it's quite simple and gives you the opportunity to try out everything. Like before, we have a tutorial, a video about the tutorial that actually explains what it's doing, but we'll skip that and I'll tell you myself. So the idea is, it's a simple memory game. You're always presented a card, and then you have to remember the card and find the card in a stack of cards. And if you would just play this with the mouse, I would just use my mouse and click on this button here with my left mouse button. But the idea is now with Semanux Access, we want to do it without mouse and keyboard. So we imagine we are a user, we cannot use our hands, we just want to use our head to do this. And how it works is, like you can already see, there's this orange circle in the middle of the screen, this one. And this circle is moving together with my head. So if I move my head to the left and the right, the circle is moving with me. If I move up and down, it also follows me. So now with this, I can position and reach any position on the screen. And you might have noticed, compared to eye tracking solutions, we didn't have to do any calibration whatsoever. So we just installed the program and it directly recognizes where my face is, and it's working directly. So also you can sit different people in front of the computer. There's no calibration absolutely necessary. So this is how we do movement. How would we now click this button? In the preset we have selected, this is the head movement plus facial expressions preset. We would just have to open and close the mouse. So I do it like this. And the game is starting. So the game now, not so important, but we're seeing there's some cards and we have to find the dog from before. It's down here. And to click again, we go open and close mouse. And this is the simple idea. So we move the head to control this orange circle and we open the mouse for clicking. Let's do one more round. So here we see this other dog. With my mouse I can click. We have to find the dog again. I think it's over here. And it works. Okay, so this is the very basic thing. There's one thing you might have noticed. If whenever I open my mouse and I keep my mouse open, this orange circle actually changes its shape. I will show you again and keep my mouse open for a bit that you can see it. Right, so by default we have this orange circle here, and if I open my mouse it looks a bit different. It's a crosshair. So why is that? The reason for this is whenever I have my mouse open, I switch into the so-called precision mode. So by default, this orange circle, it is quite fast. So I can get with the orange circle any place on the screen quite fast. This is very easy for me. But sometimes when you want to use your PC, you want to hit very small targets on your screen. And for this default mode is not so easy. So let's say I want to hit the eyes of the cat. It's possible, but it's not so easy to keep the circle directly on top of the eye. So what we can do is we can go to precision mode. That is, we open our mouse and keep it open. And in that mode, the cursor moves much slower. So I just open my mouse and then I do the last centimeters of head movement then, and then I can keep it fairly well on top of the target that I want to hit. And then if I'm fine with where the cursor is, I can just close my mouse and I'm clicking at exactly this position. So just observe now how I click the eye of the cat. So opening the mouse, doing the last centimeter or so of precision, and then closing it again to hit also very small targets. Let's do them once again. We click the big green button and now we have to select where our cat is. I think it's over there. Ah, we did it. Okay. Almost done with this simple game. I've now showed you how to do simple movement and simple left clicks with your mouse. Typically the next question is, okay, how do you do other mouse functions and how do I use the keyboard? Because in our scenario, we want to be able to use the computer without mouse and keyboard. So how would I do that? And for this, let's just go somewhere where we need to type something. So we are done with this game. So we go for stop. Actually, I've achieved a high score, a score of 3. And I now want to enter my name into this high scoreboard of this tutorial. And here, actually, I want to enter my name. So I need to bring up our keyboard. To do this, I just move this orange circle to the right of the screen. And I see a couple of functions that are available to me. In our case, we want to type. So we just go over type. And now we have our keyboard here. And I can say, hey, my name is Luke. So just I need to hold the orange circle over the keys that I want to type. And yeah, like you can see on your, like you can see on the left here, probably similar to your phone keyboard, we actually have some recommendations of what you would want to type. So you don't always have to type the full word. In my case, I don't see Lucas over here, so we enter that. And we're done with typing. We go to close. Right. That's the very basics of Semanux Access. We're done with this screen, so let us close it. All right. So far, any questions for you guys? Were you able to follow? Okay, nice. Then let's continue. So of course, so far we've only showed the very basic stuff, so simple keyboard keys and left click. But there's more that you can do with mouse and keyboard, and there's also more that you can do with Semanux Access. So how does it work? A typical question that you often get: okay, we've seen left click, how do you do right click? And by default, if you go here to this menu, you actually don't see a right click. But this is one aspect of Semanux Access, so it's very customizable. If you say you often need a right click, we would be able to add it to here. But by now, most people don't use it. Most people, they just want to click icons on their desktop, for instance. So let me give you an example. Let's say we want to check what's in our recycle bin. Yeah. So we say we have the recycle bin desktop icon here, and I want to open this with Semanux Access. How do I do it? Well, I go on top of it, and I try to click it with mouse open, mouse close, and nothing happens. And this is actually why we have the double click here, because when you use your mouse, you don't click once on the desktop icon here, but you have to click 2 times on Windows. And this is why we have the double click here. So you would select it, and then we would have to do the same thing again. But now it works. So this is why we have the double click here on the right side. But for instance, if you need the right click, we can either also add it over here, or we can use the so-called magnifier menu. So let me just show you what it's about. We select it in this area, and then we select where we want to do a right click, for instance, in the center of the screen. And this is the magnifier menu. And this is what we can, if we really want to hit precise targets, or if we want to do the regular right click in the regular thing. So here in the bottom left, you can see where we are on the screen, and maybe we move a bit by holding our this orange circle over this button, and you can see our viewport is actually moving on the screen, so we can hit very small targets over here. I realize now that I've probably have selected a bit closer, and now we go up also. And like you can see, I now have really fine grain control where I want to move on the screen. And let's say I want to do a right click here, I would select this right click action. We did it here. And let's say, I want to rename this thing. No, I've created now a different shortcut, but you get the idea. So if you want to do a right click and you don't need it so often, you could just use the magnifier menu. If you say you would want a regular right click, just a small sneak peek, and Semanux Access, you can customize anything by going through the settings, and then in the settings you would be able to go for the panel. Panel is this thing on the right, this is how we call it. And we could just say, hey, right click should also show up in here. So we are also able to do it like this. But most people don't need the right click, so it's not here by default. So this is how you do left click, right click, and how you can use the magnifier menu to hit very small targets on the screen. Another thing that your mouse probably has is a mouse wheel, so that you can use for scrolling. And for that, let us just go to Wikipedia, for instance. So here we want to read the web page, and here then also you have the scroll option. Of course, I get an advertisement by Wikipedia, but this is fine. By moving up and down my head, I can scroll, but maybe close this advertisement. So it's closed now, and then you can actually see how we are scrolling on this page by just moving my head up and down. And in this mode, could basically read any long document, maybe also PDF files, whatever you would be reading on your PC. You can scroll up and down quite easily. Okay. So these are the default buttons that you have on your keyboard, on your mouse. You have the left mouse button, you have the right mouse button, and you have the mouse wheel. One other thing you do typically with your mouse without thinking about it is that you can do drag and drop. That is, click your left mouse button, but keep it clicked and move it. For instance, to move a desktop icon on your desktop. We can also do this with Semanux. But of course, since we use mouse opening and closing for going into this precision mode and then clicking at the end, we cannot just keep our mouse open for a longer time, but instead we use the drag and drop feature that we have here. And then we have to first select from where we want to drag and to where we want to drag it. And then it all executes this drag and drop for us automatically. So this is how we do the basic mouse functions. And the keyboard I've already shown you in our game. But I guess, like you've seen, we're not limited to our game, but really we can control any aspect of a computer. So for instance, to show you how you would watch a YouTube video, we would open a new tab. We have to open our keyboard and type YouTube. We already see it over here, so we can just click it. And we can close our keyboard. Actually, no. Yeah, I'm not logged into YouTube, so I don't see any recommendations, but let's say we want to watch a video on Semanux. We go to the search bar, enter Semanux into the search bar. And we could now scroll a bit to see another YouTube video. Actually, we see the live stream that we are showing right now directly here. But for instance, let's say last year or this year as well, we have been in ReaCare. We did videos about this. And we could watch a video now.
An orange dot. When I move my head to the right,
but I'm actually muting the sound so that it doesn't disturb you. As you can see, I'm able to just do this with just my head and nothing else. All right. So far, is everybody able to follow along? Any questions? Let me also check the YouTube live stream if you have any questions over there. Okay, no questions here on the Zoom call. And yeah, I just had to reopen the YouTube live stream. So if you have any questions in the live stream, just maybe retype them. I should now be able to see them because we had some technical problems before. All right. Yes, Kaisel, you have a question. Feel free to just ask.
If you have multiple people on the screen in front of the webcam, can you selectively select which face is using the motion tracking, the head motion tracking?
We don't give you like any options for this, but let me just maybe show you how it works. So let me just open up the settings. And this is how you would see the camera settings, right? And okay, of course, right now I'm the only person in front of the screen, so it recognizes my face by drawing this thing on top of my face. And what you can use is when you have multiple people in front of the webcam, you can see with the thing which faces recognized. And I guess to answer your question, it always keeps with the same face. So if it has recognized your face one time and then somebody walks behind you, it will stick to your face. And if it somehow recognizes a different face, or you want to switch users, a good thing that you can do is that you just hide your face once, and then it doesn't recognize you and jumps to a different face that it can still see. Or you just move off camera. I can't do this right now, but typically when you have multiple people, it starts with the biggest face on the screen, which is the one sitting closest to the webcam. But when it has recognized your face once, it keeps track of that. So even other people could be sitting next to me and it wouldn't disturb it.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Sure. Yeah, any other questions? Okay. Then the next step I would want to show you is these different presets that I talked before about. So until now, we've only seen the head movement plus facial expressions preset, but we have multiple presets. In general, how do we change them? For this, we have to go into the settings. I've opened them already now, and there are multiple ways on how to do that. So if you go to the panel, you always have the settings button here on the top. You can just use that. And then what you could also do is down here in the tray area, there's also this Semanux Access icon. You can choose that and say, hey, we want to open the settings. And probably if you use Semanux Access, you would use the tray icon quite a bit. So I would recommend to just move it down here that it's always there. So then you don't need to click this little arrow here. And now here, for instance, I could do open settings. And we have lots of settings. And for instance, we can go to all presets and then we can choose all the presets. But typically, if you're a new user, it's helpful to have this thing, this setup wizard that you see when you install the app for the first time. So to see that again, you can just go to this icon here and you can do redo setup. If you click that, you see all of the same questions that you were asked on the very first installation. And by default, you can just click next all the time and it will not change anything, but it will just ask you the questions and remember what you also told it before. So I'm just going next here, and we have seen all this before. Here it tells me, hey, I'm already logged in, so I don't need to do that again. I'm just hitting next all the time until I'm at the preset menu, and let's say I want to choose a different preset, so I could choose this one. So this would be only head movement, so I only move my head, and I don't have to do any facial expressions. This is, for instance, helpful for people that cannot really control their mouse quite well enough, so they cannot control how open they want to open their mouse, stuff like this, or they might have a tube into their mouse which they need to help with breathing, so then they can only use head movements. So we would want to use this preset, and we go next, and then it asks us for all of these things again, like, hey, what's your camera? And yeah, in this case, this is it. So when you want to change your preset as a new user, I recommend you just go here and do redo setup, and then actually it asks you all of these questions again, and it also then tells you, it activates the preset and also shows you this video to you on how to use it. In our case, we have now selected this new preset. This is only the head movement preset. So what I did before to click somewhere, opening and closing the mouse doesn't work anymore, but instead I do the same thing as I did for the other things now. I go with the orange circle to the right and I select left click here. And then to click somewhere, I would, for instance, go here somewhere and keep the head steady. And in this mode, you see we also have a zoom that allows you to easily hit the right target, because we don't have this precision mode where we can keep our mouse open for longer to hit small targets anymore. So once again, let's say we want to switch to Wikipedia. We go to right, we say left click. And then as long as I'm still moving this orange circle, it is moving, nothing's happening. But if I'm keeping it at the same place for a longer time, let's say here, we see we actually do the clicking thing. So you can also operate Semanux access by or operate your computer by just using head movements, and you don't need these facial expressions. But if you can use your facial expressions, like you can open your mouse, we find that this works a bit faster for people that are able to do it. And everything else, like for instance scrolling, works the same way. So we keep our head steady, and now we are scrolling at this Wikipedia page. All right. So this is basically the only difference between this only head movement preset and head movement plus facial expressions preset. Because I find the other one with the facial expressions to be a bit better, let's go back into the settings and show you the other way in which you can change your preset. Sorry, I have a second monitor, and then the settings, they don't show up on this monitor by default, so I always have to drag them up. Okay, so this is the settings menu, and now let's try to understand what's going on here. So on the left, we have actually the most basics options available to you. So for instance, we can control our camera, or how our face is recognized, what we do with the mouse click, stuff like this. But as you might have seen, these are only the quick settings. So these are the most important settings. We have a couple more that are not quite so important, and these are hidden under all. And for people, so if you ever want to change your preset, you would have to go to all settings, and then under preset here, you could do the same thing that we did in this setup wizard before. And here we could say, hey, I want to change my preset to head movement plus facial expressions. We go apply this thing, and now we're back to the area where I can just open and close my mouse to clicking. Right, let's go back to the quick settings. And because I have now a different preset, you can see this option did not exist before, but now it exists, and it's always a good example of how our settings work. So we can go here, and these are the four facial expressions that Semanux Access recognizes. By default, only mouse open is used, and this smiley tells you how it actually recognizes your facial expressions. So if I now open my mouse, you see the smiley, it mirrors my movements. And also this bar on the bottom here shows me how open I have my mouse. And with the sensitivity slider, I can say how open do I need, or how far do I need to open my mouse to actually activate something. So for people that cannot open their mouse quite so far, we can lower the sensitivity, and then just a small mouse open, like so, is enough. Whereas for some people, they would like to do a lot of speaking while they're using Semanux Access. We could increase the sensitivity, and then we would have to open the mouse quite a bit much more until it's recognized. But this you can just specify for yourself. Or we have other facial expressions, for instance, smiling. When I'm smiling, also the sensitivity works for you, but these are always good things for new users to adjust again to see if the sensitivities are actually working for them. But now the question is, okay, I have everything is working for mouse opening, but now I would instead want to click with smiling. How would I do that? And here you don't do this when you configure the facial expressions, but rather it works the other way around. So you would want to change how Semanux Access clicks. So on the left here, we go for mouse click, and then we have to choose when a left click happens. So in our case, left click by default is when I stop opening my mouse, and we can do this very same thing when we stop smiling. So now I've changed this. When I now am smiling, I'm clicking. Right. So this is how it works in general. Under facial expressions, you just change when the facial expressions activates, and what these different expressions do, you can change under the different options that you have here. So for instance, we could also say we use closing a mouse for left clicking, and we can say we use smiling for right clicking. So let's say we're on the desktop again, we open our mouse, this is a regular left click, and we're smiling, we can do a right click. So this is really how you are able to control Semanux Access to your own preferences. Okay, is everybody still following me so far? Okay, thanks, Matthias. Also no questions in the YouTube live chat. Good. All right. Yeah, and like I said before, on the all, we have quite a lot of settings. So the idea of us is always, as some users we have disabilities, and disabilities are always incredibly personal to each user, and you can't say, hey, these two disabilities are the same. Actually, we need lots of settings to really fit Semanux to the personal user, to allow them to be as efficient as possible with their actions. So we have lots of settings that you could change. You can change simple things like here, how everything looks like, let's say the colors. You can change those. And we recommend, if you use Semanux Access, just play around with these. Most of them should be quite self-explanatory. And there are a few complicated ones, but typically these are not really necessary for you. Still, we will look at the most important ones for now. We won't have time to look at each individual action, each individual setting. But just if you're interested, feel free to try them out. But also, what I would want to show right now, if you go to our website, so if you go to semanux.com, we also have a help center up here. And the help center basically tells you all the things that I'm telling you right now. So for instance, we could go to a getting started section, which really walks you step by step on how to do the installation. Or you could go to basics, and it really shows you all of these different things that I'm explaining to you right now, written down, which is typically a bit faster and better for looking up than such a video. Still, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us, write us an email, and we will help you out. Okay, but just that you've seen the Help Center once. Okay, then to go with you over the most important settings. In general, we just have a few setting things. You set these once and then you can forget about them. Let's say like a language or which display you're running on. Then on input, we have how you do things that Semanux Access recognizes. Let's say what camera it uses and what facial expressions you can do. And then under interaction is what you want these inputs to do. So like before we have seen a mouse click, we can say we use one of these inputs here, the facial expressions. This is how we do the mouse click. But for instance, we could also change the scrolling here, what we use for scrolling. So we can also say, hey, let's say we always want to use smiling for scrolling. So I go to the website again. And then as long as I'm smiling, actually I'm in the scroll mode. But really these are very individual to the user. So depending on what you want to do, if you want to do a lot of website browsing, this might be a good setting. But for most people, just going to the right here and selecting scrolling is probably the better approach. And like this, we can change most of these other things here. Yes. One feature that I've not shown so far, which can be quite useful. Let's say we are watching our video again. And yeah, let's go to full screen. Right, so we're watching a video. It can be quite distracting to have this orange circle around all the time. So for this, we have our pause function. And of course, the pause function should also be usable when you do not have mouse and keyboard. So it works with this pause button here in the top left. So here, once again, we move the circle on top of it. And now actually Semanux Access is paused, so we can watch a YouTube video in peace. And like you see, the orange circle is now gone. And nothing that I do with my head or my mouse can stop this. Oh, yeah, bring it back. The only thing is in the top, we can still see this pause button here. And still, with just my head, I can unpause again by just moving this orange circle directly on top of the button. And then I can use things again. So the pause can be quite useful depending on what you do. Let's say if you're watching video, then Semanux Access is out of the way with the pause, or maybe you're playing a game or using voice dictation, and then in these situations also Semanux Access should not disturb you, so this is why the pause is there. Okay, but enough of this. Now you've also seen it, and for instance then in the settings, we could also control this. So for instance, we could change where does this button show up. So let's say we could move it to the left screen edge. So now it's here, and then we can move it up and down. Whatever you prefer, all of these things are changeable. Like you've seen before, the thing here on the right is the panel. You can find this on the panel. We can also say, hey, let's have the panel at the top, or keep it at the right edge. We can change the size of the panel, and maybe most importantly, we can change what kind of actions we want to have in the panel. I showed you before the right-clicking option. This is something you might need depending on what you want to do, but we can just change what shows up here. All right. Everybody still following along? Good. Then one further thing, which you might have seen before, here we have this align head. What does this do? And the reason for us here is, I said before, with Semanux Access, you don't need any calibration like you would need with an eye tracker. You just sit in front of the screen and it recognizes your face. And typically this works, but there are some situations where this does not work. So let us look at my webcam. So I am in the perfect situation right now. My webcam is positioned directly on top of my screen, and I'm positioned such that I'm in the middle of my webcam. This is the good, perfect default scenario, and then we don't need any calibration. There's some users that are not able to do this, depending on how you set up. So your webcam, it might be positioned to the side of your screen at an angle, or it might be the case that you cannot sit such that your face is in the center of the screen. So there are some users, let's say they sit like this and they cannot change anything. And in this case, it can be quite hard to move to the very top right here. I can still do it because I'm an able-bodied person, but not everybody is able to do it. So if you have such scenarios where you have users that cannot position themselves to be in the center of the webcam, and where the webcam cannot be on top of the screen or like close to the edge of the screen, we actually have this align head function here. So let me just demonstrate it. Let's say I'm sitting at an angle to the screen, and now if I choose align head, it asks me to keep where is my good middle position. And if I do that now, it will recognize this position I'm sitting in as the new middle position. And now I'm able to once again reach all of the corners of the screen quite comfortable. So it's recommended to do that for people that, have trouble, maybe sitting right up. And then you do this one time, and you change the middle or the center for the users. But in my case, let's do this again. Because actually I'm able to sit quite comfortably like this. So I like to keep it in this mode. And how does it work? So either you go for align head here. Also we have this on the head control, improve alignment. This is the same option. And like you've seen, you then see a black screen. When you see the screen, you tell the user, hey, just sit however it is comfortable for you and hold steady like this for 5 seconds. And after they've done this, it basically learns the correct middle position for the user, and then they should be able to use Semanux Access comfortable. So for instance, we've also, whenever we at a fair and we show Semanux Access just running on a laptop, typically we have the laptop is at such an angle. So let's say this is the user, and then the laptop would be like this, whereas a regular computer screen would be like this. Then also it is quite a good idea to do this alignment thing again. But if you are able to have your webcam on top of the screen, it's typically not needed. Okay. We are nearing the end of my presentation. We now would go for the a bit more in-depth expert stuff. Do we have any questions so far until here? Okay, then let's maybe show the things that you really, if you are an in-depth Semanux Access user, or you install it for other people, you supply other people as a distributor with it. So I showed you before, we have these different presets here. And just to say this, because I did not show it to you, so head movement plus button. Yes, we still would do the head movements, or the movement with turning the head left, right, up and down. But instead of opening a mouse, we could use a physical button. If we are able to still press a button, so let's say we could use our fist for pressing a button if we cannot do like fine motor control. The same we can do with a controller. So if you have a controller that your user is able to use. For instance, here I have the Xbox Adaptive Controller. This would be a controller that is also usable for people with disabilities. You could use that for pressing the button and still doing head movements. You can use only a controller, or you can even use Semanux Access together with an eye tracker. These are the different presets that you have, and we can just choose something and we click apply, and then we are using this preset. But typically, as a distributor, you might want to do some further changes. So let's say you supply some access to people with different characteristics. So some people, they might be able to move quite well, but other people might not be able to move so well or control their movements so precisely. So for that case, you might want to say, hey, we go in this express mode setting, which is this default mode where we have this only circle, and we say, hey, we want to change something where the speed of the thing should be a bit slower for people that cannot move so precisely, because then a slower thing is typically better to reach small targets, and we want to have it very smooth. So this is the slow mode, let's say we call this. Let's say we want to change something else again. So for you users, you find these people, they need to open their mouse quite a bit, so we change the sensitivity here. And now we have made a few changes to this default preset. And if you now want to have these settings also on another computer, you can go for Profile and Export as a new preset. So let's say we give this a name. So what we did was head plus facial expressions, but we somehow made everything a bit slower. We can now export this as our own preset and save it just as a file. So this is an SXAP file. We can click Save. And then on a different computer, we could just, instead of using one of the presets we supply with Semanux, you could say, hey, I do not want this. I want my own preset. I go for File and import this file that we just created. And then we have, we can also transfer with this way presets to different computers, or we can make our own presets. Or we can say we have a slow and a fast mode. We can say we have a different preset for when you play games, which I will show you to you in a second. Okay, but yes, all of this is based around our profile system, which allows you to have different settings available at the same, on the same computer at different times. So I have now named this current profile slow, and this is the only profile at the moment. But let's say we want to have a different profile, so we just duplicate the existing one, and then let's say we can give it a new name, for instance, only head fast. And for this profile, we want to use this only head movement preset that we've seen before. And now I would be able to change between these profiles that I've created. So we have the only head movement, which is fast. When I go to head plus facial expressions, this would be head plus facial expressions in the slow mode. And like this, I can create multiple different profiles on the same computer, and also have the user switch between them. And typically this can be useful for power users. So in practice, you might want to have something like a website, let's say a web browsing profile that you use if you do to general web browsing. But then you might have a different profile that you use for work, let's say Word, Excel, stuff like this. And then you can change between these profiles. You can either do it in the settings, or you can add a button to the panel. Let's say we go to panel, and then we can say here, switch to the next profile. Then the user can also do it himself. So let's say now I'm in this mode, and now I'm changing to, actually I want to do some web browsing. So we hit the button here again. Now we're in the web browsing mode. Let's say, hey, okay, I do some browsing on the web. Yes. For this preset, let's actually go to a website. And let's say I want to read the comments to this YouTube video. We're done with web browsing, then the user could change this profile again, and now be in the work mode. So where you, and you for instance might say, hey, on the web browsing profile, I would like to do a lot of, let's say, scrolling. So I use the facial expressions to activate the scrolling command. And in the working profile, I maybe want to set something else. And to maybe give a fun little demo here, let me show you how to game with Semanux Access, how this could look like. And for this, I have selected here a popular German game, which is free, which is called Moorhuhn. Don't know if you guys have heard about this before. Let me just show you how it works. So this is just a flash game, a simple game in the web browser. So the game works. We have these flying chickens around here, and then we would just click on them to shoot them. This is simple children's game, but just to explain how it works. So I move my mouse cursor currently with my hand. I can move to the left and right here, and then we can click on these chickens to shoot them. And as you can see, I have ammunition here in the bottom right. And if I continue shooting, at one point in time, I don't have any ammunition anymore, and I can no longer shoot. So this game works by, I have to press the space bar to reload, and then I have more ammunition. Okay, and now we want to play this game with Semanux Access. How does that work? So in the simple case, just maybe let us create a new profile. We say we want to have a new profile, and we call this profile Moorhuhn, which is this game. We actually want to use the head movement plus facial expression preset. And then, I can just move the orange circle around, and then open my mouse and close it to click on these chickens. So this is the default mode. This works quite directly. There are no settings that we need to adjust. Let me just shoot a bit more to show a point. Because you guys can see my ammunition is going down. Actually, the game just ended, so let me just quickly do this again. So we have shoot, and now we don't have any ammunition anymore. If I do just play with Semanux, how do I reload? Now I would have to press the space key. And we might say, hey, it's a bit tedious that I have to now open the keyboard over here. And then I'd hit the space bar to reload. We say this might be a bit tedious. We can make this by doing our own settings a bit more efficient. So we might say, hey, okay, actually in Semanux, there is this setting for key press. I can say that I can trigger individual key presses on my keyboard. I activate the setting, and what I want to do is I want to press the space bar whenever I'm starting to smile. And now when in this game again, I can shoot a bit. And now my ammunition is gone, so I'm just smiling. And I'm reloading like this. So this works quite fine. Let me show it once again. I don't have any ammunition anymore. And for smiling, it just reloads for me. But you also might have noticed when I play this game with the mouse, I would move the mouse cursor to the left and right, and actually then my vision moves to the left and right. So when I move it to the right edge here of the screen, actually I'm moving in the world to the left and right. But if I use Semanux, if I go with the orange circle to the left and the right, nothing happens. Why? Because Semanux Access actually only moves the mouse cursor when you do an action. So let's say if I'm clicking somewhere, then it moves the mouse cursor. Right. And the reason is that you typically do not want to have the mouse cursor moving all the time. But for this game, for instance, we would like to have this. So we can go to settings, and we could go to mouse cursor, activate mouse cursor. And now if I leave the settings, you can see that the mouse cursor is following my orange circle. So maybe on the desktop, it's a bit clearer. You can see the mouse cursors are actually moving with this orange circle without me using my hands. And this is actually a setting that we would want to use to play this game, because now when the mouse cursor is following to the orange circle, we can actually also go left and right in the game world with just our head movements and without using the hands. So these are just two simple settings that allow us to play this game to the full. So let's, to recap, to shoot, I'm just using my mouse, so I'm opening and closing it. To go left and right in the game world, I'm using just my head movements. And for reloading, I'm just smiling. Yeah. And these are settings that we typically do not want to have every time we use Semanux Access, but really only for this simple game. So this is why we do a profile for this. And by default, we go back to our regular web browsing profile where we don't have these settings. So for instance, where smiling wouldn't insert a space everywhere. Okay, was that clear? Were you guys able to follow? Nice, okay. Yeah. I just see somebody in the YouTube chat wrote that all of these features are also available for Mac. This is of course true. So to recap, if you go to Semanux and download, you can also download these things for Mac, and it works pretty much exactly the same way like it does on Windows. Yeah, time-wise, we're also coming to the end of our session. So this was getting started with Semanux Access, the very first steps. So maybe to quickly retrace this, if you want to use Semanux Access, or if you want to use your computer without mouse and keyboard, you should use Semanux Access. You go to semanux.com and you click on Try Now. You see an in-depth explanation on what this is. You can click on Try Now for free, and you have these different options: completely free, a 14-day trial, and then with a monthly subscription, or the Pro version. You can click on Download. You can download for Windows and Mac. You can then install everything. When you install, we have this setup, which we can reach also by clicking on Video Setup. You just click Next and follow whatever is on the screen. We have different presets depending on how you want to use Semanux Access by default. So head movement and facial expressions, or just head movement, or other things if you have extra hardware. You have to have a webcam for this, and this is enough. And yes, then the most basic things is that we do head movement with our head and clicking with opening and closing our mouse, and all other functions are available in the panel on the right. We have a list of settings available depending on how you want to customize Semanux Access. And yeah, really just look through it and try everything out. It shouldn't be too complicated. And if we have different, we can have different profiles depending on different settings. And maybe one last thing that I didn't show before. So what we did now, we did this game that we played it by opening a mouse and smiling, but we could also say, hey, I want to use something else. So I'm a user, I might have some mobility in my hands, so my mobility might not be good enough to actually use a mouse, but I might be able to just do something like this with a fist. I could use a specialized controller like this one, like this is a Xbox Adaptive Controller. Also to show you once how to use this, let's go back to a Mohan profile, and we're saying we now have a controller. Actually, we activate this controller, and then when I press this one button, we see it shows up here, and the other button shows up here. So we have a direct mapping when the controller is recognized. And then where before said, hey, left click we do with the facial expressions, we can also now say, yes, we do this by pressing the button. And this spacebar we do with smiling. We can also press a different button. And then I would be able to play the game just with using these buttons. Actually, there's an ad now in this game. Don't need to show ads to you guys. Right. And then for shooting, I would use this one button, but still my head movement to position the cursor. Like you see, I'm not using my hands for this, I'm just using my head. And then for reloading, I'm holding a different button. So this, of course, also works for people that might have some rest mobility. And we with Semanux, we don't really care about what kind of hardware you use. Everything should work Semanux to some degree. All right. Last call. Do we have any questions? Okay. Yeah, then I would say thank you guys for attending. We will have more upcoming web seminars. There should be blog posts around them on the website. But if you are interested in them in general, subscribe to our newsletter or send an email to contact@semanux.com to always be informed when we have a new web seminar. They are live streamed on YouTube, and you can also see the recordings over there. Connect to us on LinkedIn if you want to stay in touch, and all the information is also available on semanux.com, of course. All right, thank you everybody for attending, and see you next time.